Every day in this place and every place we might live and breathe the gospel of Jesus Christ. Amen. Good morning again, everyone. So we are finally, after pushing it back a week, we are beginning the concluding series of our summer worship schedule. It's called Stories of Church Renewal. This was something we started talking about back in the spring, actually, as we celebrated the resurrection of Christ on Easter Sunday. We appreciated the annual renewal of God's creation. And we've reflected a bit on the cyclical nature of that creation and on the life that is granted by the gospel of Christ, which is also renewed by the resurrection. God and Christ are always making things new, including the life of the church. These are the spiritual truths that we have kept in mind, even as our denomination is going through a difficult period of transition. It is the blood of Christ and the love and grace of God which have created us, redeemed us, and sustained us through all things. And so now as we're approaching the end of the summer, the beginning of the school year, we've spent the last couple months sharing words of wisdom from around the church. We've given thanks for the various spiritual gifts that we possess here, and we have embraced a mindset of abundance over a mindset of scarcity. The ministry of abundance imagines what can be done, and it counts our many blessings, while the ministry of scarcity is hindered by talk of what cannot be done. And it too often laments a lack of time, or of people, or of resources. The stories we're going to hear over the next couple weeks will also be stories of churches and individuals who have embraced the ministry of abundance rather than the ministry of scarcity. So today, in week 1 of our series, we're going to take a look at Ginghamsburg Church in Tipp City, Ohio. This is a suburb a few miles north of Dayton. Has anyone here ever heard of Ginghamsburg Church? A few of us have, of course. It's one of the largest United Methodist churches in the United States. Ginghamsburg is a multi-site church that offers 7 different worship services each week. It's located across 3 different campuses. These include specific services for individuals who are recovering from alcohol and drug addiction. They include a variety of different worship styles. Ginghamsburg also offers more than 100 weekend and weeknight learning programs for its members and non-members. These are geared toward multiple different demographics. They cover multiple interest groups and different learning opportunities. It operates dozens of local ministries and missional outreach programs each year, and these cover ministries that are local and national and global in all of their scope. Now that description, it may make it sound like Ginghamsburg is a sort of prototypical megachurch, and in some ways it is. However, I would not immediately dismiss or characterize it in that way. Unlike so many megachurches in the United States these days, megachurches that are more inward structured, more consumer focused, and more revenue driven, or as I and some others have described them, cruise ships for casual church shoppers, Ginghamsburg's history is tied to the United Methodist Church, and its growth has been the natural result of a ministry that is deeply missional and focused on discipleship. Ginghamsburg Church, it was originally founded by a Methodist circuit rider back in 1863. Some of you may remember that old claymation video that we showed a year or two ago that shared the history of the United Methodist Church in America. Well, those circuit riders, they were the ones traveling around on horseback, spreading the good news, and organizing people into worship gatherings in different places. The early United Methodist Church was organic. It was constantly moving. It was shifting in a growing spiritual movement that arose on the frontiers of a young nation. As a small rural church, Ginghamsburg was part of a multi-point charge for part-time pastors all the way up until the 1920s. And at that point, local seminary students started being appointed to this church more regularly. But the biggest change for Ginghamsburg happened in 1979, when its current pastor emeritus, Mike Slaughter, and I'm sure some of you have heard his name as well, maybe some of you have even read a book or two of his, was appointed as the church's first full-time pastor. At the time, Ginghamsburg averaged about 90 people per week in worship attendance. Since his arrival, the mission of that local church there has grown from serving its own needs to serving the needs of others. And as a result, its membership has grown exponentially over the years. And today, Ginghamsburg welcomes over 5,000 people to its weekly worship services. That growth, as we said, has happened organically and as the result of creativity and innovation in several different eras of church development. In the 1980s and 1990s, Ginghamsburg gained national recognition as an innovator in small group ministry, and that remains, even though they are as large as they are, small group ministry remains one of the core staples of its ministry today. They never want their small groups to get too big. Ginghamsburg was also an early frontrunner in online ministry. It currently has one of the largest internet ministries in the world. They are active on social media platforms, and they make their ministries accessible to seekers through technology. And today, the church operates a nonprofit designed to help other churches develop their own websites and online ministries. In the late 90s and early 2000s, Ginghamsburg was one of the leaders in the growing multimedia worship movement, and we're all familiar with that. It incorporates video and graphics and audio-visual elements into the worship service to enhance the church-going experience. Multisensory is the term they have used often. So in addition to its online ministries, Ginghamsburg's worship design has received a lot of national attention and critical acclaim over the years. They've been the subject of many articles written about the new church movement. On the missional front, Ginghamsburg has expanded its ministry efforts, both locally and globally. The one they're perhaps best known for is in 2005, the church began investing in an initiative called the Sudan Project. It's designed to provide sustainable relief for the men, women, and children of the war-torn region of Darfur. We all know that's been the site of one of the greatest humanitarian crises of the 21st century. Ginghamsburg has partnered with UMCOR, which we all know. It's used funds to implement sustainable agriculture, safe water, sanitation, child development, and child protection projects in the region. These initiatives now serve over 250,000 people, and the project has built over 200 schools for children in the region. Ginghamsburg Church has also been very active in rebuilding projects domestically in places like New Orleans, where it has regularly sent mission teams to assist the local community in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. The ministry of Ginghamsburg Church and of its pastor, Mike Slaughter, who is still there, it has been effective because it has been outward-focused and mission-based, rather than inward-focused and purely preservational. This has been one of the hallmarks of Slaughter's career in ministry. Slaughter himself has become a leading figure in the missional church movement over the years. He's a published author. He's the founder of Passionate Churches, LLC, which specializes in developing pastors and church staff and lay leaders for mission-based ministry. Slaughter's focus has been on rethinking the old methods and old habits of the local church, moving away from institutionalism and more toward faithful discipleship. that gets church members out of the building and into the community around them. In the opening passages of Mike Slaughter's book, Recovering the Message and Mission of Jesus, his challenge to us is very simple and very direct. He says, quit worrying about getting people into your church and start finding opportunities to move the people who are already there out into God's service. Slaughter describes his own calling to ministry in terms that are similar. He describes his calling as a calling to afflict the comfortable and to comfort the afflicted at the same time. He challenges the followers of Jesus to wrestle with their own callings in ministry. And Slaughter also notes in the opening of Recovering the Message and Mission, he notes it's time for churches to get over the cruise ship mentality of being a program provider and reconnect with the true message and mission of Jesus. To bring good news to the poor, release to the captives, and freedom to the oppressed. The church is called to be a mission outpost, living out Christ's ideals in today's world. One other way that he phrases it is he notes in his opening, somewhat humorously but also unironically, that each generation of believers must decide again whether their Christianity will have anything to do with Jesus. This mission-focused ministry that is built around service rather than self-service is why I would not characterize Ginghamsburg Church as a typical megachurch. It is a multi-campus ministry which has surprisingly mid-level facilities. If you look on the website, it's not quite as big as you would expect it to be. It's still quite big. It's still a very impressive facility. But it is not quite the gaudy, consumer-friendly, Mecca-like complex that we would initially imagine. It's not a shopping mall. Now, in asking the question of whether or not a church like ours could replicate the growth of a church like Ginghamsburg, the answer is unquestionably yes, but with a couple conditions. First, we cannot replicate church growth without first replicating that church's commitment to ministry and discipleship. Those are not an optional part of the equation. Those are the equation. Second, we cannot hope to find renewal in our ministry if we cannot find spiritual renewal in our own hearts that inspires us to take up new ministries and serve our community more faithfully. And third, we cannot hope to experience meaningful church renewal unless we are willing to let go of the mindset of scarcity in favor of a mindset of abundance. So those are the three things. We have to be willing to replicate ministry and discipleship that is faithful. We have to be willing to find spiritual renewal in our own hearts. And we have to be willing to embrace the abundance that we have right now, here, today, in this church. And that abundance has nothing to do with financial resources. Abundance is a spiritual reality. It is about what feeds your soul, what cleanses your heart and makes it new, what heals you and makes you whole and fulfilled again. Abundance is found in faithful worship and in a healthy prayer life. It's in abiding presence. It's in the giving of our time and our spiritual gifts to living out Christ's gospel in the world. Abundance happens when we serve one another in fellowship, while also serving those children of God around us who are most in need. We don't have to be Ginghamsburg Church. We don't have to have 5,000 people in dozens of Sunday school classes each week. But with a similar commitment to faithfully living out the gospel of Christ in the world, we will certainly find that same level of spiritual vibrancy and abundance. Thanks be to God, and amen.